Hey everyone! Recently I had the pleasure of being commissioned to animate 2 scenes that was part of a play based on a new children's book called Trickrina Von Twinkle. The scenes would take place during prominent parts of the main character's journey, her traveling to the city for the first time, and a beautiful transformation sequence. For those scenes, I needed to craft various shots, which in turn means I had to face my old nemesis, backgrounds. But I was ready to face it head on. Let me show you. Alright, so starting off with each background, what I need to do is set up the placing of everything. So I'm doing the sketch version, like storyboarding, for each scene. This is the exterior of the castle that she's leaving. I wanted to make sure that that the place was right for everything that was going to be going on. A little doodle, I got a doodle every time. Next, I'm setting up the flying through the cloud scene. Trying to place where some of the clouds would be. Added in blur just to show where some of the perspective would be. I'm putting her in there to see for placement as well, seeing how big she's supposed to be against everything. The nice guy, and then she gets a little closer, and the arrow is pointing in her direction of the floating. Next, I'm doing the outside of the city. This was a little bit different, difficult actually, and different what it ended up being. But I used a generated image to help set up some of this place, but I'm using her to do the placement as well. Same with the green arrow. This is the original version of the exterior of the apartment that she's going into, and they ended up changing. Gotta go fast, Drawing a little Sonic in there, Super Saiyan here, going back to it. Setting up one of the shots of her floating up. I'm using the picture from the book that already exists, and then putting in some effects to see how that's gonna look. Same with her in the middle of her transformation as she's floating up with her new wings, and then her grabbing the wand, how that scene is going to be set up as well. Alright, now let's get to drawing. I want to do a little brush type of effect, and I looked at Fairly Odd Parents a little bit, how some of those clouds are with the different colored sparkles in there. I use that as inspiration to get some of that cute fairy sort of whimsical look to it. And I set those perspectives up. Now let's get to the castle. This is an exterior shot of the fairy land used in the book, as reference image that I used. And the original artist made a great rendition of how the exterior is looking. I use that as the main reference of what I'm doing. Adding all the pinks and the shadows and that deep sunset colors going on with there to affect against the clouds ended up being really beneficial to how this scene is set up. And in doing the outline of this, it took me a while to think about how I was going to actually do the castle, but adding in some of those lower opacities so you can see through a little bit, adding in some shading and that rim light sort of glow effect made it look really official and blends in perfectly with what the original was looking like. Putting in some of the actual foreground that goes in there was pretty straightforward. It technically could be done a little bit better in my opinion, but I do like the way it turned out. Going into the next scene, let's really start changing the way the apartment actually ended up looking. So this shot is actually a screenshot that I've taken from the Spider-Man PS4 game. I wanted to get a nice exterior view of a brick house apartment area, and I can't just fly to randomly New York or anywhere to find a good reference image. So I use this as the base, and that ends up going into adding in the color for that. So I took a screenshot and then did some outlines, changed a couple of things as well, added Trickrina in there as a reference for size and scale, and just got to outlining and adding in the colors, some textures, some lighting. Then I separate those to different layers. So like you see the balcony right here, that will be in front of her. So when she lands, she won't land on top of all of that. She'll be behind the railing. Adding the date, because date ended up being daytime, adding in the skies in there. That's on a separate layer. And all three of those, the 3 buildings, the 2 buildings and the background are all separate, as well as the front balcony. This one right here was the hardest shot of the entire animated section that I worked in. So it was an overall overview of the entire city that she's flying into before she gets to the balcony. I had to use a good reference image for the setup of that, and I did the first front down there as well as some trees starting off, and I was just I figured out, work smarter, not harder. I could take the same front face of that building and do some perspective on that, change it up a little bit, and give more buildings as well without having to do a bunch of work each time. And that made it flow seamlessly well. And look at the roof the way I had this set up. Make sure you use masks. Masks are your friend, and they allow you to, when you're drawing in 2D, working within the limits of what you have already previously done in the layer under that. So the transformation scene had only one actual shot that wasn't special effects, which is the interior of the castle. So I used the book as the main reference of how it's supposed to look, and then from there I just drew a straight small outline and then went into rendering everything, just drawing it straight up. These backgrounds are really fun to work on, and I like incorporating new techniques every time I have to do them. Follow me to stay tuned and up to date, because I'll be posting final animations about this soon. Peace.